toy sailors. This project is inspired by a delightful little hat from the film Best in Show. It's also an homage to Catherine O'Hara, who brought so much warmth and joy into this world. So she and Eugene Levy in this movie are dog show people, and he has this hat with their dog's face on it, and I love that. I think anyone who is obsessed with their animal companion should be able to have excessive custom merch. So I'm gonna hopefully show you how to turn your pet into a leather patch, or turn an image of your pet into a leather patch. I think if your pet is a mammal, you could technically turn it into a leather patch itself. That's not what's happening today. Taking an image of a pet, and I'm gonna demonstrate by taking my cat's face and putting it on a little leather patch so I can wear it on a hat. And I have done leatherworking twice, years ago. So I am definitely not qualified to be teaching any sort of leatherworking, but I think that means if I can do it, you can do it too. To get started, I want to create a very simple, stark design of my cat's face, and I'm going to pick a photo of her to reference. I'm the caretaker to this sweet potato. Her full given Christian name is Ya F***ing Lunatic, but she's more commonly referred to as Luna Bean, Looney Bear, the sweetest potato, the princess Plumpkins, and our perfect Cinderblock lady. She frequently assumes a meerkat or otter position. She's not particularly athletic, and she'll try to drink a dark beer if given the chance. And yes, this was all an evil ploy to make you look at photos of my perfect cat. Anyways, after I finally pick a photo, I'm going to trace her most significant features. So outline, eyes, nose. I'll play around a bit. I'm using layers in Procreate, which is an app I love, but you could also use tracing paper or parchment paper in a pinch. The nice thing about using something like Procreate and creating a digital file is that you now have a file that you can reuse for at-home projects or send in for other custom projects if you're the kind of psychopath who wants an engraved journal from Etsy or an etched water bottle. Once the image was complete, I printed out a couple different sizes so I could pick one that fit best on the hat. Side note, I was so eager to test out the leather embossing that I just grabbed an old image I'd made for the water bottle etching. So I actually had this image of Looney from before, which is why the black and white are inverted. And I did all of this before I'd actually had a chance to film the process of designing the pet portrait. So I shot this part first. So yeah, there's some editing subterfuge and dark movie magic happening here.
We have found the witch, may we burn her! Burn!
Next, I put clear tape on both sides of the printed image, and I have a scrap piece of veg tan leather that I'm going to use to cut out roughly the size and shape I'll need. From my understanding, veg tan leather is the best for tooling, so if you want to stamp or carve or emboss something, you'll want to use this kind of leather. I'm just using a regular old box knife to cut the leather. I would, however, recommend a sharp blade. The next step is casing the leather, which basically just means getting it wet so that it is sort of softened and ready for tooling or molding. It seems like there are lots of different recommendations for the best steps or processes to case the leather. I'm not an expert, and also sometimes I want simple things, so I'm just going to go with this easy method where I get the leather somewhat damp with a sponge and then let it sit until it returns to its normal color. I'm setting the rest of the scrap next to it for comparison. But yeah, just give it a wee bath and then we wait for many minutes. And whilst we are waiting, let us embark on a little side trip journey of curiosity. Today's Let's Get Learnt topic is inspired by the fact that I think I can make a tutorial about leather crafting despite my very limited experience with leather crafting. So let's talk about the Dunning-Kruger effect. In 1999, Dunning and Kruger did a little psychological study where they examined performance and self-assessment of undergraduate students on tests of grammar, humor, and logic. The students who scored lowest thought that they had scored significantly higher. So the titular takeaway of the study was unskilled and unaware of it. How difficulties in recognizing one's own incompetence lead to inflated self-assessments. The effect has since been studied across many fields, from chess to aviation, from medicine to politics, and it looks at how skilled or knowledgeable you think you are in an area versus how skilled or knowledgeable you actually are in an area. So it's confidence versus competence, and someone with a low ability in an area tends to believe that they have a higher ability in that area than they actually do. This is not an official scientifically backed graph, but it's just one that I really like. And so the idea is you start to learn about something and you think, oh my gosh, this whole new world of knowledge has opened up to me and skill. I am the ultimate master of this knowledge and skill. Congratulations, you are now at the peak of Mount Stupid. Then you start to learn a little more, and as you learn more, you start to realize just how much more there is to know and how much you don't know, and you become competent enough to realize just how incompetent you are. And alas, my friends, you have now descended into the valley of despair. If you can persevere and get past this despair and continue gaining knowledge or skills, at that point, both your competence and your confidence will begin to rise. So I spend a lot of my crafting time, I think, between the peak of Mount Stupid, which is where I think that crafter's audacity kind of thrives, and the valley of despair, which is where I have to let the spite and stubbornness set in and make me keep trying. And it's just a little roller coaster. But having the courage to be bad at something and be willing to try something new is the only way we get better at something. But yes, let's get back to doing some leather work, and please join me as we summit Mount Stupid. Pow, pow. All right, that's pretty close back to the sort of original color. And now that the leather has been properly moisturized, I'm gonna put my little template to trace on here, and you could maybe tape it in place, but I'm not gonna do that because I'm lazy. I'm gonna use a stylus with sort of a little nub tip to trace in my design. You could probably use even like a dull pencil, maybe. Whoops. The idea of tooling or embossing at first sounded kind of intimidating to me, but I think really it's just kind of like drawing with a blunt pencil, or if you're carving, it's with a really sharp pencil. My hands are starting to get a little tired because I have weak grip strength and very weak hands. Yep. Move that a little bit, so hopefully that doesn't totally ruin everything. After tracing, I don't know what the proper term is, but I did some aggressive smooshing with the nub, just to try and make the image pop a bit more. Oh, look who it is. Speak of the devil. You want to come sniff your own patch? No, baby. No. Get your foot off your face. Foot off face. Thank you. I used a box cutter to slowly and carefully cut out the patch. This probably would have been a bit easier if my blade was a bit sharper, but then I wouldn't have had the same character building experience. The edges were pretty raggedy, so I thought I'd experiment and maybe try smoothing them with sandpaper a bit. Maybe? I feel like there's probably someone out there who's like, no, what are you doing? Why would you do that? Well, because I don't know what I'm doing. And that's also okay, because it's just a patch. I wanted to continue smoothing the edges, and I knew there was a wealth of wonderful information and tutorials out there, but I was already sitting down and the camera was rolling, so I tried to wing it. I don't remember. This is what you're supposed to do. And I vaguely remember something along the lines of wax. Hello, it's me, from the future, with new wisdom and the benefits of hindsight, here to discuss the steps you might actually want to take when you're doing leatherworking. So according to Tandy Leather, for finishing leather edges, you do the following steps: trim, sand, oh, you do sand, bevel, burnish, then dye or paint. I did not bevel. I think because my desire to not stand up or Google anything outweighed my desire to do the project properly, and so I decided to just get on with it, which means that I forgot to bevel the edges of the leather. And I have a beveler. I looked at it and thought, oh, that's a cute tool, and then just put it back down and moved on. Lesson learned. But I would like to demonstrate how you would bevel leather edges before burnishing them, partly because it's just such a satisfying step. You're like, ooh, ah. So I've called myself a recovering perfectionist, and I understand why someone watching this with the sheer lack of planning and the haphazard chaos might think to themselves, there's no way this person has a speck of perfectionism in them. But let me tell you, embracing this kind of messiness is how I even convince myself to get started on a project. Otherwise, I think I just get bogged down with overthinking and planning and preparing. Then I can get really stressed or overwhelmed about the thought of making a mistake. But if I just dive in with the mentality that I just need to get started and I'm likely going to mess up and I'll probably make a lot of mistakes and this is going to be silly and ridiculous, it takes the pressure off, and I'm much more likely to actually start a project. And then also mistakes feel less like a failure and more like an opportunity to learn something. So I try to convince myself, make it badly, but just make it. But yeah, let's get back to the other shenanigans. Like beeswax, which I don't have fancy beeswax, but I had this candle sitting around, so I'm just gonna rub some of it along the edges, which, you know, is a soothing thing. Rubbing a candle on some old skin. I do have this burnishing tool or edge slicker that looks like a little stout magic wand. Instead of wax, some people use a burnishing compound, which probably works a bit better than my 99-cent candle. And you just rub it back and forth to create some gentle friction. I wanted to make the image pop a little bit more, and I wasn't totally sure what medium I wanted to use for that, so I got a scrap of leather and decided to test out a few options. I started with Posca markers. The brown marker was more subtle than I expected, and I tried out a black marker as well that was much less subtle. As well as leather dye. It lives in a plastic bag now because there was an explosion. I'm also wearing gloves for this part because this is leather dye, and I am also leather. How do I know that human skin can be stained by leather dye? Does it have something to do with the previously mentioned explosive disaster? Yes, it does. Anywho, I decided to go with the dye and I applied it with a fine paintbrush so I had more control over the little details. After the dye had dried, I painted on a layer of acrylic finisher. It made it a bit glossy and helped the contrast pop a bit more. It's not a necessary step, but I had some on hand and it should add a little protection. Alright, it's finally time to glue the patch to the hat. I'm gonna go ahead and use E6000 glue and leather glue in the hopes that that'll be strong enough. You could also, stitch this on here, but I don't want to do that, and that seems like more work, so glue it is. And because this hat has curvature, I'm gonna try to put something sort of curved in it and sort of mold this as I glue it in place, but we'll see how that works. My E6000 glue has gone sort of gummy, and I think that maybe just means it's getting old. I don't know, hopefully it'll still work. It makes little globs. I think I probably need to get some new glue. Get off! Ah! Maybe we'll limit the amount of E6000 glue we use. Squeeze! Why is it coming out the side? Do I need to cut the tip? God, riveting content. Look at just like nothing. Finally, I'm taping the patch in place just while the glue is drying. I let it dry for at least 24 hours and then we'll see how it turned out. Hi. Hello, you want to see your hair? Come on. Oh, yeah. the hat. Yeah, I'm quite pleased with how it turned out. Even though I didn't bevel the edges because I forgot, I think it's cute. It makes me happy. I mean, I have my cat on a hat, so cat on a hat. There's nothing really to be disappointed with here. This is technically a gift for my husband. Though obviously the #1 critic is the sweet potato herself, but she seems to approve. And he has worn it out a number of times, and it's Washington, so there has been some rain and moist weather, but I don't know, it's held up really well. Yeah, would do again, would make more. But yeah, it was just fun, pretty easy, makes a great gift. So just to wrap up, if you're still here, thank you so much. This is just my second video and I've been pretty nervous about doing this, but also been finding that being vulnerable can be pretty empowering. And also cozy crafting videos have been such a positive in my life lately, and I'm really hoping that maybe mine can be that for somebody else. So I hope you had a smidgen of enjoyment and maybe got a little bit inspired to make your own custom pet patch. Oh, this big squeaking sound. You like the hat? Is your favorite hat? Okay. And scene. No, don't do that. That makes you look like a weird octopus with 2 arms.
Look all pop with him.